Hello, my name's Desmond Brett. I'm a senior lecturer in fine arts. I specialise in sculpture and I work at Norwich University of the Arts. It's a pleasure to be able to introduce you today to the Monument Challenge on behalf of Inspiring Norfolk. When you think about a monument, you might generally think about a large figure that might be in a city centre, or a massive sculpture in the landscape like Anthony Gormley's Angel of the North, or some massive figure sitting on a plinth with his fist on his chin. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And we'd like you to think about the monument in more open terms. It might be more abstract than that. Of course, it could be a figure, but it might be something much more suggestive of place or history, or something relating to a location. If we take that assumption that a monument is a figure in a city centre, or a large-scale piece of sculpture in a landscape, you could turn that over and think of a monument in much more abstract terms. What it could be is something much more organic, or it might be relating to sound or a different kind of experience of place. So I'd like to talk to you about some ideas that might stimulate you, to get you thinking about what your monument could relate to, and in particular about Norwich and Norfolk and the surrounding area that might have a bearing on what you do. Firstly, I'd just like to draw your attention to this piece of work here, which is by an artist called Bernard Reynolds. And Bernard Reynolds studied sculpture at Norwich in the 1930s. And I had the pleasure of working with him when I was a much younger student at the time. And I had first-hand experience of working with an artist who made monumental sculpture. And a piece like this, which is pretty small in comparison to some of his work, is made out of bronze. It's very hard wearing, it's on a stone plinth, it's in the open air, and in many ways that's a very conventional kind of sculpture for an open air setting. One aspect of your monument could be to do with history. It might also be to do with architecture. It might be something that's relating to the people who live in a particular area. It might be to do with landscape. It might be to do with the coast. So there are lots of different ways you could respond to the idea of the monument. One thing you might want to consider is how Norwich is a very literary city. It's the first UNESCO City of Literature, and as such, it's got a rich history of writers that are related to the city itself or to the wider area of Norfolk. And if you're particularly interested in using literary references to your work, you might want to consider some of the writers who were either born in Norfolk, worked in Norfolk, or wrote about Norfolk. We'd like to invite you to make a monument. Now, of course, we're not expecting you to build something out of bronze, carve a big lump of marble, or fabricate something that's 50 foot high. But what you can do is make what's called a maquette. And a maquette is a really, really important word for sculptors. As a sculptor myself, I make maquettes all the time. And a maquette is a very small scale version of something that you might imagine on a bigger scale. The maquette could be made out of anything you want, anything that's at hand. It could be plasticine, clay, it might be bits of cardboard, anything you could find at home that might be useful to construct something. You could take photographs of it, and you might cut out that photograph and superimpose it into a location of your choosing. You might want to use Photoshop to place this maquette in a different location. So, for example, if you wanted to make a sculpture that sits on the top of Norwich Castle, or floating on the sea off the North Norfolk coast, you've got the power to do that using Photoshop, or just simply cutting a photograph out and sticking it onto another image. And remember, the materials that you use don't have to be high art materials. Use clay, plasticine, sellotape, bread, paper, anything you want to use. If it helps you to visualise an idea, even better. So when you think your maquette's ready and your proposal's done, please submit it at the following email address: student.recruitment@anyway.ac.uk. And most importantly, have fun, because making sculpture is boundless. You can do anything. It's really up to you. We'd love to see what you've made. Good luck and have fun.